kind of a paradox because if I were to write a book about a 12-year-old that wanted to be a basketball star and went over to his grandma's house and ate collard greens, people would say that's authentic. And I would be writing about myself in that case, right? But if you wrote that exact same thing, you would be accused of stereotyping. What? He's black, so he has to eat collard greens at his grandma's house. He's black, so he has to love basketball. Well, no, he doesn't have to, but this particular boy does, and I think that's okay, right? And so, I mean, what is the line between just stereotyping and actually capturing a cultural difference? I mean, if I want to write an Italian character, as a black person, if I want to write an Italian character and I want to have him go home to his family and eat spaghetti with meatballs, I mean, look, I'm not reinventing the wheel, certainly, but I'm also, Italians do eat spaghetti. Like that's not coming from nowhere.
I can just picture this getting chopped up and like spread online.
What are they going to say? They don't? I mean, you see these videos. I saw hilarious videos on, I think Instagram Reels or TikTok or something, of Italian Americans having like a Italian and like I think breaking the spaghetti before putting it in the pot, which is a huge no-no among Italy Italians, but common among American Italians. And each one of the Italians actually reacts like in the exact same way, with just like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, but with an Italian accent that I can't do.
Sure.
And so obviously multiply that through every aspect of life. There are patterns. Like black kids do like basketball at a higher rate than a lot of other races. It was true of me as a kid. It's true. And so if you want like to inject authenticity, how do you inject authenticity without injecting a stereotype? Are they just actually two different words for the same thing, two different sides of the same coin?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think a lot of the people who I consider, fairly smart and fairly well-intentioned are sort of trying to figure that out. I would never try to offer some sort of blanket formula for toting that line. I think it really has to take place on a case-by-case basis. So, for example, if I, as a American dude who has never been to Northern Italy, for some reason decided to write a novel set in Northern Italy, I think there's objective ways to get that right or wrong, or authentic or inauthentic, in terms of how do people dress, how do people eat, how do people talk, are there certain assumptions about dating, are there like that? That's kind of like a sociological question. But again, it starts to get weird, and in my opinion, not empirically accurate, or just frankly downright racist, when you start sort of creating these cultural differences where in fact they don't lie. Or to your point, when you sort of you critique someone for writing a story that has cultural difference, but because that person's writing it from an outsider perspective, quote unquote, then it's hailed as racist. Like I would, and the sensitivity readers, the easiest way I think for people to conceptualize them is I think they function as a sort of disaster insurance that allows you to navigate this space that doesn't have clear guidelines. So if I'm an editor at HarperCollins and you're a white author and your book has black characters in it, I know that could be potentially a real big problem, especially when it gets hit by the review outlets, especially places like Kirkus, which are just, woke beyond belief, to the extent that they have a policy of identifying characters by race in all their reviews. So they will write, Coleman, this white guy, has a book with like 5 black characters and stuff. So people are going to be like, does he get it wrong? Does he whatever? But to your point, if you're a white guy and you have a book with 5 black characters who like to play basketball and eat collard greens, like that's going to get absolutely eviscerated. But if you have 5 black people who just, for lack of a better word, just act like white people and are not distinguished by their race, then you get accused of colorblind racism. So the way around that is to hire a sensitivity reader or 2 sensitivity readers or half a dozen sensitivity readers, and to then also put that in publicity material or put it in the acknowledgement section so that you're getting sort of this like social proof that would allow you to do, whatever you end up doing in the novel, but not getting that sort of backlash. Honestly, like, I might be talking sort of. At the end of the day, what we're essentially talking about is a very elaborate way of saying I have a black friend in publishing. Like,
Yeah, like we ran this by black people and they liked it, so you
Yeah.
can't criticize it.
Yeah,
Does that
100%.
work though? Because
No, not
because
ours.
it can still get criticism, right? On,
Of course.
on a Kirkus.
Yeah.
And then if you're getting the social media mob, does the fact that you ran it by a sensitivity reader actually help you in that moment? Or is it that their suggestions, the sensitivity readers are basically the same people that are professional cancelers, so they kind of know
sure.
what they are triggered by?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is in some way, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, very few people actually read novels. Obviously,
sure.
it's been shrinking and shrinking, and its lunch has been getting eaten, been getting eaten by television and movies for a long time. And among people who read novels, the number that truly care and are highly sensitive about portrayals of different races and genders and all that is even smaller, no doubt. And so we're talking about an incredibly small slice of the population that influences the writing of the entire industry,
Yeah.
right? And so if you get people from that, it's not even, I don't want to say demographic because it's not bound by race or gender,
Right.
that ideological demographic, if you will, and you get them to clear it,
Yeah.
then you're unlikely to get those sorts of critiques, right?
Yeah, you're definitely less likely, but there have been certainly cases of books being accused of this, that, or the other transgression that have gone through the sensitivity reading process. Like you mentioned, Blood Air at the beginning, right? So that was critiqued heavily by this guy, Kosako Jackson, who is himself a novelist and also a sensitivity reader for Big Five Publishing. And a few months after he went after this other author, people went after his book. So like even someone who is sort of in that 0.001% of hypersensitive people, even he apparently cannot write a book that avoids accusations. And I think that speaks to the fact that the sort of criteria is so ephemeral and esoteric and constantly in flux that even the wokest of the woke kind of can't stay up to date with it.
Yeah, it kind of has a character of I think John McWhorter wrote this in his book Woke Anti-Racism. He just created a table of actions and their opposites that are both considered racism.
Yeah, I think I know
right?
what you're talking about, the litany of contradictions or something he called it.
Right. So if white people move out of a black neighborhood, that's white flight, which is racist. If white people move into a black neighborhood like Harlem, that's gentrification. It's also racist.
100%.
So the only thing you can do is like be a white person that stays in a white neighborhood, but that also vaguely feels racist too, if it's intentional. Or I don't know. And so there's many different examples like this where, and publishing is one, as you point out in the book, if you are a white guy that grew up around mostly white people and you're writing a quasi-autobiographical novel and you didn't grow up around black friends because you grew up in Vermont, where it's 1% black, well, your novel isn't going to have black people.
Sure.
And that is racist, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no representation. But if you try to conjure black people into the situation, then you try to be culturally authentic, and they're eating cornbread, then that's also racist. So there's a sense in which, anything can be literally anything can be marked as racist, which gives the people doing the marking quite a bit of power. And leverage, and it gives them, it means that basically whether they mark the novel as racist can now have to do with various other factors, such as how much they like you.
For sure.
So it makes sense to now really be in their good graces and court them. And I'm not saying all of this is done consciously, but it creates a certain incentive structure.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I've had the thought more than once over the past few years, and I simply don't have the time to do this, but I want to create a board game called You're Racist, where every decision on the board game somehow leads you to being a racist in the end. Because it's as you pointed out, right? So if you move out of the neighborhood, you're racist. Stay in the neighborhood, you're racist. So to tie that in with publishing, I had a conversation with an editor at Penguin Random House, one who is actually very close to the internal uprising over Jordan Peterson's book, where some of her colleagues wanted Penguin Random House Canada to not publish this book because it was written by Jordan Peterson.
Was it 12 Rules
12
to
Rules,
Life?
yeah.
Or his follow-up?
It was 12 Rules,
Okay.
which isn't a political book, but
Yeah,
just because
it's really it's a self-help book.
yeah. But so at Penguin,
And it's mostly about lobsters.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole first chapter is about lobsters.
yeah.
Did they have to get a lobster sensitivity reader?
They did not get sensitivity readers, but there was an internal town hall where people were quite literally crying and accusing Penguin Random House of violence for publishing this book. And the person I was speaking to who was in that town hall, she was someone who identified as a feminist. She's a woman of color. I quote her in my book, I think at the beginning, where she's even like, hey, I have kids. Like, I do think about like diversity in publishing a lot, who are giving a voice to, but she was like, that was just absolutely ridiculous. The idea that we wouldn't publish this book. And she's like, the idea that people who weren't even like working on the manuscript were like crying about it. Like, you don't even have close contact with it. You're not at the editor. She just found it absolutely ridiculous.
Had they even read it? I mean,
probably not.
Right.
I mean, one of the things that
the entire first chapter is about lobsters. To be clear,
yeah.
like it's like 40 pages of just describing the life cycle of lobsters.
I think it was less about the book and more about this is Jordan Peterson who has offered these.
Right. So it's hard to
positions.
imagine they were sitting there reading it and in tears about,
Yeah, and then
it was about who he was.
in that case, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the question of if these people are genuine, and unless you're some sort of method actor, I assume they're genuine because they're literally crying. Like, I'm not speaking metaphorically. If that's genuinely how they feel, then like these are people who need help. Like they're in Canada. They should have free health insurance and access to mental health professionals. Now, on the flip side, if this is like sort of performative outrage, and that certainly exists within publishing, then if like those people shouldn't be there, in my opinion. And if they continue to be there, and you continue to hire people like that, you're going to end up turning every major publisher, and they're already sort of like this, minus like the one conservative imprint. You're going to basically turn them into the university, and as we have seen, especially in the past year, like if you're confused as to why so many Americans hate places like Harvard and Yale, not just conservatives, but centrists, and you're confused as to why the right wants to defund these institutions, then you're probably part of the problem. And I think publishing has been going in that direction for a number of years, where, it's not going to surprise me if they start to receive the same sort of like negative sentiment that academia has had.